webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to take care of some housekeeping items to ensure that everyone can hear our presenters today. We've muted your microphones. If you have a question for any of our speakers, we invite you to type it in the chat window located on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll do our best to get to everyone's questions during the Q&A portion of the webinar. As always, this webinar is being recorded for those who weren't able to attend the live session today, and a link to the recording will be sent out shortly after the webinar. Now with that, let's get started. Today's speakers are Dan Lebert, Chief Executive Officer for NAILBA, Paul Legutko, Senior Principal, AT Novarica, and Grace Atta, Assistant Vice President, Product Development, Equisoft. Good morning, speakers. How are you?
Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Hi,
Mark.
Good morning. So Grace, since you're representing Equisoft in this session today, could you give us a quick overview of the research project that we'll be talking about?
Sure, Mark. So this research project really was birthed out of a need for us to try to understand the truth behind all the frustrations we were hearing and seeing in the independent insurance channel. And those frustrations were all really around approval processes and approval timelines. So we wanted to reach out to carriers and to distributors to understand what their perceptions were of the issues that were being experienced in the field. We wanted to understand what the roadblocks were and what the challenges were, as well as what they were doing to address these challenges. We also sought to understand how carriers were using data. So how are they leveraging the data? What value is the data going to have in future? How are they speeding up processes through data? And we wanted to understand all of that. So we commissioned Novarica to help us conduct this study. And what they did was they had an online quantitative survey, and then they coupled that with a companion guide of qualitative interviews for executives. And this allowed them to have really deep insights into how these executives, how these CIOs were what they were thinking around policy onboarding and how they felt about wider issues around agency automation. So we're really excited today because the research really yielded some great perceptions, and we're excited to share the highlights with you today and to explore what they mean for our industry.
Excellent. Thank you, Grace. Now, to keep this session interactive, we'll be asking you to participate in some polls along the way. You can access the poll questions by clicking on the poll tab located in the side panel in the upper right side of your screen next to chat. We'll use the results to tailor today's discussion as closely as possible to your needs. Please take a moment to complete our first poll question that is on screen now. What challenge is most important to address in your agency today? Option A, multiple systems and stakeholders to integrate. Option B, attracting or retaining the best advisors. Option C, sales and marketing. Option D, policy onboarding. And option E, operational inefficiencies. We'll give everyone about a minute to complete the poll.
I love audience participation.
As do I.
Well, good opportunity for attendees to weigh in and engage with our Zoom-like world that we're in today, right?
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how all of this aligns with the research we've conducted as well, right? So real-time polls are my favorite for that. So I hope everyone's gonna answer.
Well, we got the few still answering. We'll give it another few seconds.
I keep trying to press on my answer here, but it's just not taking it. So
probably because you're a moderator or a speaker.
We're not allowed to vote.
I know.
Exactly.
I think there's a credibility issue there, Grace.
I know.
There's bias. No, I'm just kidding.
So that being said, I guess actually we have the top one. Actually, we have two top runners, multiple systems and stakeholders to integrate, as well as operational inefficiencies. Paul, are those results aligned with what you expected to see?
Yeah, they are. I think that's interesting. I mean, I was expecting, all of these, to be pretty popular answers, but those two make a lot of sense. We work with a community of young independent agents, and we use them for research purposes, and conduct focus groups, and kind of chat with them, and we hear the same things, right? So multiple systems, stakeholders to integrate is up there, because especially for young agents tend to work with more carriers than older agents, because they're new to the business, because they're still, trying to find their niche, because they're still, exploring the marketplace, right? That means that they have more carriers that they have to think about in terms of like, integrating with, managing, the portal access, keeping their, logins and passwords straight. So it's a lot to integrate, and that's just the agent, to carrier relationship. Inside the agency, there's a lot of integration that has to happen, as we see, and this is where I think you're seeing that operational inefficiency, right? As you see agencies, smaller agencies merge together, to form like networks, to form, larger agencies, they're bringing their own legacy systems in. And we hear agents complaining that their agency has, 5 different agency management systems, and, 3 different places where they can find, the appropriate spreadsheet. And I think that's leading to a lot of these kind of operational inefficiencies that are reflected in this poll. So no, not surprising at all.
Well, thank you very much for your perspective. And actually, Paul, my first question would go to you. In your research, what challenges did carriers describe in increasing efficiency in the independent channel?
Well, so carriers know that delays and bottlenecks in the application submission and underwriting process it's bad for everybody. It's bad for the agents because they're left in the dark. It's bad for carriers because that means that the agent is more likely to, get frustrated and shop the policy. It's bad for potential insureds because they also don't really know what's going on, and they don't necessarily know who to go to find out. In talking to the carrier CIOs, the inefficiencies and bottlenecks tend to fall into 3 categories. The first is agent delays. So some CIOs that we talked to suggested that agents were causing a lot of the delays because they're not submitting complete applications. The applications are not in good order. They need to run multiple illustrations, which takes a lot of time. Or they're seasoned agents and they are unwilling to adopt new technologies that the carriers are standing up. The second category is around like digital delays, and this is digital delays in digital communication. Things like e-signature, tele-app, lack of real-time notifications. That's all preventing applications from being submitted quickly. So standing up these capabilities, but also driving adoption of these capabilities, or lack of adoption, I should say, is causing these digital delays. And then finally, there are just delays in the process, right? I mean, this includes long underwriting times, exam scheduling. A lot of these are unavoidable, but again, like transparency is the key. If something's going to take a long time, let the agents know that so that they can communicate that to the policyholders. One CIO that we talked to said, if a policy is placed or if it's declined, then everything is straightforward. But if it has to go to underwriting, then I don't have a good way to describe how long it's going to take or what the problems are going to be. So, it varies quite a bit as to how long it takes to issue a policy. In no time is it in no case with the carriers that we talked to was it real time, but it could be weeks, it could be days, it could be hours, it could be under an hour. Given this, that transparency is the key. In terms of how these applications are being submitted, and Mark, I got the next slide maybe. We see that agent portals are still like the primary method, for submitting applications. But we're starting to see an increase in things like email or third-party platforms as being used to like submit these applications. I would say also that from the carrier CIO perspective, automation of the submission process isn't just about technology. It's also about better data and better analytics that will simplify applications and encourage applications to go through straight through processing, while all the while, kind of managing that risk. So, again, the carrier CIOs are focused on technology, but they're also admitting that better data, better analytics can also speed up the process. I guess, Dan, what did your research with distributors reveal? Was this kind of in line with what you saw?
Well, let's give a little background about the research itself. I mean, this was a North American distributor survey. NAILBA, we partnered with Equisoft and our Canadian counterpart Kelba. So we really took a deep dive, and again, just around how the sausage is made, right? This was sent out to over 400,000 independent advisors, 10,000 BGAs, our carrier partners. That I'm going back to the BGA staff. So the research, I want to say, really wasn't surprising, but I'll add a little bit as we go here. I mean, let's just dive into it. I mean, the majority of BGAs and MGAs north of in Canada, they experience an average wait time of anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months or longer for policies to move from application to insurance. I mean, that's utterly crazy. I mean, we're living in an Amazon world. I mean, don't be surprised if one of our doorbells goes off right now because we just ordered something yesterday and a delivery is arriving today. And that's what consumers are looking for. They're looking for, 3 clicks and you're out. That's really not possible with life insurance, but we can improve the process with proper technology. And we'll dive into that later. I thought another big observation was, 78% of distributions surveyed identified underwriting and carrier approval to be where their agents, felt the most often waiting in the dark. And we're going to touch on a solution there. And then, couple these two aspects with the challenge distributors have of really no way to get real time. Grace, I'm sure that drives you crazy given the data, the importance of data to drive decision making. I mean, this doesn't allow a 360-degree review of their business, and it becomes really tough to communicate with their clients and provide a good customer experience. And let's be honest, experience is what sells, not transactions, right? And I'm happy to dive on that a little bit further as well. But this really just boils down to complex and legacy systems. Just really make it difficult to gain an aggregated view of their business. Now, another interesting insight that came out of our research is where distributors felt in the new business submission and underwriting process, agents are just hitting roadblocks, right? And this is super important for the broker general agency, as if the advisor is hitting the roadblock, well, then there's a process, there's going to be delays around the process. So our survey revealed that the 3 top roadblocks are, efficiency issues with time lags due to batch processing of policies or poor integration between third-party systems. Sometimes this is also the carrier systems. Just slow processes, right? Policy issuance or just what the claims are. And this is a challenge that stays in the industry of just poor no digitalization of internal policy administration and data storage and management systems. So it comes down to a few questions, right? In addition to dealing with these roadblocks, how do agencies streamline profitability, right? What this is my favorite one, and I say this tongue in cheek, so I have the official disclaimer if that counts. What carrier, right, will stop the race to the bottom in terms of pricing, right? Right now we're looking at a term life policy for $87.01 per month, or a competitor at $87 and 99 cents per month, a difference of less than $1. But we're in this race to the bottom, and it's going to take leadership at the manufacturer level to make that change. We also start looking at just price pressure, which I just detailed. BGAs are trying to figure out what products are going to what the complexity is around their products and how to sell them. I think there's a big professional development opportunity. We want independent advisors to get up and move selling life insurance slightly up the priority to-do list, right? Especially with 100 million uninsured and underinsured. So we have to be much more efficient in the products that are coming down the pike and stop making them so complex or candidly rearranging the deck chairs. And And of course, you know, and NAILBA was big on this throughout 2020 is the advisor experience, the agent experience. You know, we have to recognize, you know, what the gaps are to become, you know, agent driven, of course, through the BGA, you know, making business easier to do. And carriers need to think of advisors and their BGAs as clients, and most do, but you know, it still comes down to fostering a long-term relationship. Some are really, really good at that. Some, you know, I think just with all the pivoting last year and this year, there's just some challenges. I mean, I spoke with a carrier executive yesterday. I mean, they were slow to the table in 2021 around their automated underwriting, and their sales numbers show it. And you know, candidly, advisors and BGAs move business to a competitor. So a lot of data there, a lot of points. But you know, Grace, I'll throw this to you. You know, we saw that some of the research that was conducted, that CIOs are commenting that distributors are seeking more effective systems for advisor compensation and commission accounting. You guys know offline commission accounting is like the bane of many NAILBA BGA existence. So Grace, can you just offer a little bit from our conversation what you're hearing around in those areas?
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. I mean, just going back to what you just showed a couple of minutes ago, right? So looking at how long it takes from policy application to issuance, 2 weeks to more than 2 months, that's way too long. So you're already dealing with an advisor experience that's really suffering because of the length of time it takes to go through that whole process. And so the CIOs that we've been talking to and what we've seen through research is that yes, accelerating underwriting is huge, but beyond accelerated underwriting, they're just seeing a huge demand, guys, from advisors and from agencies around faster, more flexible compensation arrangements. So they want to have access to their compensation. They want to know what they should be expecting. They want to know how they're going to be paid out. They're looking for, as the industry is evolving, that the way that they are compensated evolves as well. And so I'm starting to see that, at the MGA and at the BGA levels, that a lot of our clients and a lot of those distributors in the industry are starting to look at how can we get access to this commission data. And in Canada, it's all around commission fees, which we're not getting today from carriers. So back office vendors such as Equisoft. So for our Equisoft centralized product, we've had to develop our own tools to ingest data that's coming in from the carriers to provide a view to the agents that are using our software, as well as to the agencies, on what the expected commission payout should be. I'm helping them to reconcile, helping to give them that view. It's just all about transparency, right? So we've ended up developing different tools, as I said, either ingesting Excel spreadsheets, automating as much as we can, where the carrier is able to play a part in that. And then we're also starting to use OCR technology to lift the data off of PDFs that the agencies are still downloading. So it is a huge issue. I think it's something that CIOs have recognized as well, that it needs to be addressed. So if you're looking at, accelerated underwriting, you're looking at the customer journey, right? I'm sitting at home and I've just tried to buy insurance, and how long is it going to take, especially when mortality protection, right? Where insurance is such a big topic item right now in view of everything going on in the world. So they start, asking themselves, why is it taking so long? Should I look at a different carrier? Is this the norm? But on the flip side, you've got an advisor who now needs to be motivated, right? You've got an advisor who, traditionally does a face-to-face, really good at reading their clients, understanding and giving that, that personal feel to the conversation. Now that you're having to do everything remotely, how do you motivate that person? You motivate them by helping them see that you care about them, that you're listening to them. And what they're asking for is, we want to know what we're being paid. We want to know when we're going to be paid. We want you to be flexible in the way that we're paid. We want you to listen to us. So that's what we're seeing. So
paper checks and no financial backup doesn't cut it anymore? Sorry, sorry, Mark. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Not at all. I mean, I have clients saying, I don't know how long carriers are going to keep sending us checks. I don't know how long they expect us to go into the office, Because
well, I know the feedback I've received is BGAs just love receiving a lump sum check that has no financial backup whatsoever on what policies were sold and how the commission breaks out to the advisor. And paper checks, I mean, right? Talk about the wave of the future. All right, I'm done. I'll show myself out. Go ahead, Mark.
Over.
Can I go now?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Paul, what would you say are the key takeaways from what we just discussed?
Well, I think it's all about agent experience, right? An efficient process leads to a better experience. Now, how do we get to that efficient processes? It's technology-enabled sharing of data and the management of that, agent experience. So this means a few things. This means integrated software solutions, providing all the stakeholders with those streamlining processes, data governance, conducting a data audit, integration, figuring out which data is the most important, migration and conversion. One of the things that surprised me in the NAILBA survey was just, that I think it was 47% of the agencies said that their internal agency management systems were more than 10 years old. I mean, come on, it's time to convert, time to, migrate to something a little bit more modern. Data sharing, really key, right? Enabling that data to flow from carriers to distributors to agents, and make this, make this a cycle, not just one directional. That's one of the findings that we saw, is that while carriers are willing to, push data over to agency management systems, they're a lot less willing to take that in. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later if we like. Finally, increasing the speed of operations and providing that transparency, relies on that sharing of data. Finally, it's about identifying leaders who will champion the measurement and management of these agent experiences, right? Finding out what that agent experience is like. Carriers are often in the dark themselves about how easy it is to use their portals or how easy it is to submit an application. There often is not a kind of, mechanism for gathering feedback or gathering analytics around that agent experience. So enhancing the knowledge about, both the advisor experience, but also using that knowledge to drive agent adoption of those digital solutions. So I think those are, really about the ecosystem of data flowing back and forth, using modern technology to drive that, Mark.
Excellent. Thank you. So before we move on to our next segment, I'd like to take a moment just to ask everyone to answer our next poll question. What is your biggest challenge in automating and streamlining agency operations? A, omni-channel capabilities, stakeholder communications, access to data, legacy technology, organization culture towards digital, and professional development. So we'll give everybody about a minute to get their answers in.
This should be an interesting one. I think I know which one Dan is hoping for, so he can talk to it.
Sadly, I could talk to all of these, but we definitely have our wish list. And I believe it's often overlooked, but that's okay.
Are you sure it's okay?
It is. I'll be all right with it.
That's good. That's good.
We'll give everybody another minute.
It actually illustrates the points, and I'll just buy some time here while we're waiting for the conversation, but it's also the culture we're creating within our profession, right? I mean, I heard a great stat yesterday that for those of you who have children, and you let them watch the baby Einstein videos, and we thought we were all being great, intelligent parents and engaged parents because they're hearing Mozart and Beethoven. But in reality, all we did was teach them is that for every 2 to 3 minutes, look for something new and flashy to look for because the music changed. And actually, Grace, these polls are working out to right into that example. So, Mark, I'm happy to cue it up whenever you're ready.
Absolutely. Actually, I'll let you take the ball because unfortunately I'm having a technical difficulty where I can't see the results.
Okay. Well, running at least on my screen is legacy technology, right? So that falls right into line of my thinking, and of course, access to data. And the access to data is always going to be a challenge because it's just it is what it is, right? Some people who have the data aren't necessarily releasing the data, but let's just focus around legacy technology. Am I surprised by that? Absolutely not, because in my time as CEO of NAILBA and speaking with so many different broker general agency principals, and of course partnering with some great technology partners, Equisoft being one of them, you hear that, well, there's no reason to change. We have custom software that was built specifically for us and how our agency works. And let me break the news to you. Your agency doesn't work that much different than the agency up the street who's competing for alignment and relationships with the same advisors and the same customers. And then of course on the carrier side, well, those are massive undertakings to get rid of those legacy systems that every CEO of different carriers that are around NAILBA that I've chatted with, address technology as a massive undertaking, not underwriting, undertaking. And that's a challenge. We're also in a low interest environment, which publicly traded companies are somewhat challenged to do major technology initiatives, and candidly some are slow. Like the example I referenced before of one company, major company, US-based company, having a fantastic 2020, but they almost milked it dry on their existing setup, right, legacy setup, and not advancing their systems to be more automated in 2021. And this year, they're since we're not mentioning any names, I mean, they're running almost 20% behind, and that's a major chunk of dollars, especially to a publicly traded company. So let's jump into this. What the research, Paul, did tell us about the factors that contribute to some of the slower onboarding and the automation challenges. We asked BGAs, what they believe the main challenges their carrier partners faced, and it was interesting to see their 4 answers. And I believe we have that screen up, or getting to that screen of main challenges distributors believe carrier partners face. And referencing poor digitalization, right? That's going back to the legacy system. Let me just go out of it here and give a good example. Outside of the industry, we're all using different technology for our own lives, right? Social media, Facebook, Instagram, if you have children, a lot more apps. But we see how intuitive the technology is. And in our mindset, we become accustomed to that. So when we go and then get on the clock the next day and we're logging into systems that have difficulty tracking, poor digitalization, not intuitive, and candidly low engagement, that just makes the challenge so much harder to help to close those gaps and deliver that customer experience. Let's move forward to the average age of distributor agency management systems, because I think this goes well to Grace. What I know is near and dear to me. But we asked agency how old are their agency management systems, and nearly 50% have systems that are 10 years old. I won't offer any more freelance comment on that, because we know we need to change. Solutions have changed considerably over the past 10 years, and given the pace of the digital evolution, there have been significant improvements. It is time to, I don't know, dare I say, grill that sacred cow. I'm sure the vegetarians in the room love that analogy, but I will use it just for kicks. So we're understanding about the age of the systems. We're afraid to move away from it. Why are we afraid to move away from it? I don't know. Maybe because you have to train your people to get up to speed on things. It's around that professional development angle, but I'm not going to go off on a tangent. And then, going on to the next slide, not surprisingly, distributors cite the cost as the main challenge when they face digitalizing their internal systems, followed closely by their legacy systems and lack of resources, right? We talked about that at the carrier level, that some of the cost is a major investment, but is it really, right? Is investing in something that's going to save you time, so you could increase the amount of applications you process? Isn't that investing in your business? And is it just one of those things that a lot of leadership, doesn't get the right information from their people and say, oh, it's too expensive? No, it's really not. And investing in your people and investing in your central nervous system, which is your technology, is the way to go. I don't know if I really want to expend too much around commission accounting. I guess, Mark, in some ways I've I don't know, maybe wore that one out with some of my sarcasm around commission accounting. I've talked to numerous agencies who have to invest 6 figures to just figuring out either in personnel or in systems, or both. I'm sorry, a combination of the two when you're taking the 6-figure reference. But they have to make that investment to figure out their commission accounting. And again, that's not helping close the gap, because once again, we are making the product hard to sell. I mean, when we all take a job, we want to know what our salary is going to be, and we want to know what our benefits are going to be, so we could stop focusing on that and focusing on delivering the results, the envisioned end result. Well, then I'm not sure why commission accounting still remains a problem in our space, but clearly it does. And I guess in my very forward-like mentality, it's because of poor technology. So on that note, Paul, I'll shut up, because you guys know I can keep rambling on. But what did your research show about what capability carrier CIOs are standing up in order to improve the advisor experience?
Yeah, we see a pretty wide variety of capabilities. And here's how a lot of this breaks down. A lot of it is about setting up quick quote, setting up that data connectivity to comparative raters, to AMS systems, and these are, in a lot of ways, these are things that carriers can kind of work on the back end and then kind of launch, I don't want to say it's easy for carriers to do this, but it promotes agent self-service capabilities, right? There are a lot of opportunities and gaps, though. I think that insurers are so focused on driving agents to their portals and getting the agents to do self-service there. But adoption is slow, and they may be missing other opportunities to stand up different kinds of capabilities. One of those opportunities, for example, is agent onboarding. Insurers right now are relying on kind of ad hoc videos or brochures to onboard agents onto their digital properties and kind of to promote that digital adoption. But these initiatives they're somewhat passive. They're reactive. There's no systematic way of understanding from a feedback perspective what agents really need to be successfully onboarded. You think about some of these portals. These are not easy to use applications. These are things where you really need to have some kind of a more systematic adoption and onboarding experience. Another opportunity is kind of the provision of marketing assets, to agencies. Some life insurers are attracting agents by providing them with sales or marketing assets directly. For example, social media content, blog posts, brochures, co-branded, promotional material, white labeled websites and landing pages. These add value to the agency. But again, this is not something that carrier CIOs are really investing in, systematically. It's unclear whose responsibility that is. Is it the CIO? Is it the CMO? Their budgets appear, fairly small in most cases. There's also a big opportunity to have a dialogue with agencies around cybersecurity. Obviously, insurers have a very deep interest in the security of their digital portals, but they do not generally tend to extend those cybersecurity solutions to their agents directly. And it's an issue of increasing concern, especially as carriers start to invest in those AMS integrations or those connectivity integrations. They're going to have to open up that dialogue and work with agents around that, making sure everyone's happy from a cybersecurity perspective. The last thing I'd mention is that there's a lot of interest in the avoidance of errors and submissions, and the avoidance of applications that are not in good order. In a lot of ways, that's almost as important to carrier CIOs as just speeding up the process. Obviously, errors and omissions, NIGO applications require additional cycles of communication. They prolong the process, and they pose significant risk and liability to insurers, who want to, invest in third-party data in order to, do a lot of that pre-fill, a lot of that, verification of the data that they're getting in the application. So another opportunity to invest in, those kind of capabilities that will reduce the numbers of errors and reduce the applications that are not in good order. I guess I'll turn it over to Grace. Grace, what issues from your end are you seeing distributors, grappling with right now?
Yeah, so Paul, I was actually just looking at the polls again, because the top two were legacy technology and access to data, which is exactly what I was going to talk about. So I'm very happy it worked in my favor, because what we're seeing the distributors facing right now is access to data, because once they have that access to data, they're able to do a whole lot with it. So what I mean by access to data is, can their AMS system ingest data from the carriers? And how is it processing the data that it's receiving? And from there, how is that data being displayed to the advisor? How is it being leveraged to help the advisor do their jobs more efficiently? How is it being leveraged by case managers to provide the needed support to advisors, right? One of the comments I see in the chats is all around, we have an aging advisor population. Okay, so doesn't mean the older you get, the less technology savvy you are. Not necessarily. My dad's 86 years old, and he's very, very much into, his social media, even at that age. So it doesn't really matter how old you are. It's all about your mindset and how, easy it is for you to adopt technology, or whether you see the value. And it also depends on the system. How intuitive is that system? So what distributors are really grappling with is not only, whether their AMS is older technology, but it's how intuitive is it? How willing is their vendor to invest into the technology? How does the technology integrate with other solutions? That's a huge hot topic right now. It's, how do I ensure that my back office can talk to my CRM? How do I ensure that there's, a lead generation that feeds into my AMS? How do I ensure that my AMS can export data out into my data warehouse or a data lake, or into my own internal system that will help me to figure out, ways I can help my advisor to make more sales and to help people as they're searching for insurance products that meet their needs. So it really all boils down to data, and that's something that distributors are facing. Sometimes they are getting some data from the carriers, but it's not always complete. And some carriers have acquired other carriers over time. How is that information coming back into the AMS? It's not always very evident. So we're seeing a lot of that. I mean, next week I'm going to put a little plug in here for Clydas, but next week we have a Clydas webinar. So this is huge in Canada, because it's going to be addressing some of these challenges all around data. And the other issue that they're facing is the fact that the carriers don't want to get, that two-way communication flow going. So they're okay pushing data into the AMS system, but how about receiving some data? How about receiving, address change requests? How about receiving updates from the AMS? So I think there's a lot that's not being leveraged right now in terms of, the key role that the distributor, the BGAs and MGAs are playing and connecting, the clients and agents to the carrier. There's that gap right now. And a lot of distributors are really struggling with that. There's no one who really owns the onboarding experience for agents. And so this is another thing. BGAs and MGAs are saying, the portals have been set up by the carriers, but there's no real processes. There's no real management of that. And that ends up causing a lot of issues down the line. And then it's all about, again, how do you help your advisors build relationships with their clients, especially at a time like this. So it's about, looking for new tools to help these advisors and making sure those tools aren't, overly complicated Cadillac versions, of some of the tools out there. Some tools are just too big. There are a lot of players, CRM players in the industry today, right? I'm sure we can all name, one or two that come top of mind. And I've used all of them, but do they work in insurance? Not necessarily. Do you really need that, or do you need something that's more tailored for the industry? Something that an advisor can just log in and be able to use it easily to build a relationship with clients. So I think in all, MGAs are looking for simpler tools for their advisors and robust tools for their head office users. So it's having that balance between the two and understanding you have different audiences with different needs. And, you know, obviously I work for Equisoft, so there's a lot of great things that I would love to say right now, but I want to keep this, you know, as objective as possible. But yes, reach out to me if you have any questions on anything I've said. Over to you, Mark.
Well, thank you so much. Actually, I would ask you, how would you summarize what carriers are doing today?
Well, you know, carriers, I have to say they are putting in a lot of work because we have seen a huge shift in how they have increased efficiencies just over the last 2 years alone. One of the things that they're doing is working on new tools to improve communication. So we're starting to see, you know, for example, working with a certain carrier, we've started to see interest in them saying, how do we leverage your CRM or your lead generation tool to pre-fill some electronic apps so that we can take that additional manual work away from the advisor. So they're looking at that, they're investing in that. We're happy to partner with them through that. So they're really looking at more automation. They're looking at, you know, easier flow of information to them so that they can in turn service those clients and those advisors better. They're looking at, you know, the bullet point at the bottom left, right? Aligning marketing efforts to provide consistent support for agents. This is huge. They're starting to see that the agents are their clients. It's not just the policyholder that you should be caring about. So we're starting to see a lot more push on that front. And I think that's starting to be seen by the MGAs and BGAs as well. And they're in turn looking at how they can support all of those actions from the carriers. And then, you know, they're helping not only the agencies, but the advisors also prepare for what we call a data-driven future. It's how you embrace, you know, technology and all of the data that we have at our disposal. They're starting to look at, you know, how do you use artificial intelligence to start looking at all of the different types of policies that are coming in and how long they take, you know, to go through their approval process, and how do you look at, you know, using that to set expectations within the, you know, with the policyholder and with the advisor. So every single thing I see right now from the carriers is all about how they leverage data to enhance the advisor experience. And that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. So before we move into our final segment, I'd like to ask everyone to answer one last poll question. What is the most important enhancement you can introduce going forward to improve agency automation and effectiveness? Carrier to agency data integration, centralized singular data source, improved agency management and CRM tools, better communication structures between the stakeholders, increased marketing and sales support from carriers, or commission accounting. We'll go ahead and give you about a minute to answer those. Give it another 30 seconds. Answers are still coming in. Seems to be a tight race. So I think we can call it, basically we're looking at carrier to agency data integration in first place, followed by centralized singular data source, as well as improved agency management and CRM tools in second place. So Dan, what's your reaction to these polls?
Have you ever heard the phrase, legs feed the wolf, right? You don't necessarily need to be the fastest in that phrase, but you do need to be consistent, right? You do need to utilize the tools you have, and you know, in this case, data feeds the decision making. So, you know, carrier to agency data integration, of course, right? I mean, if you know your, in this example, if you know your in-force management, which I think is one of the biggest challenges in the industry today, is that we're often overlooking. If you know your in-force policy management, you know where you can get your data from and where your sales will go, right? You know, we're talking about improved agency management and CRM tools, right? I think where we're going to go with this is sort of an aha moment, right? But I'm going to hold on the aha moment until we get just a little later in, because Mark, you know, the title of this webinar is providing the solutions, right? And there have been solutions flowing throughout this entire webinar, but there is a significant aha moment as it relates to investing in technology and investing in people. So can I hold that one for a little bit?
Absolutely. Actually, we'll give Grace a turn. And I would ask you, when we look forward, excuse me, what do you think are the biggest things distributors can do to improve operations?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to start looking at all of the manual processes you have in place today and start to look at how you can digitize them, you know, and how you can automate some of them. I think there's this fear sometimes with agencies where it's like, if we're going to be automating and digitizing all of our processes, then we're going to be, you know, forcing people out of their jobs. And that's certainly not the case. I mean, we're seeing this, you know, throughout Europe, for example, where they have digitized a lot of the processes, and yet they're now creating new types of roles, more value-added roles, right? So these processes were just really, you know, manual. They were very repetitive. They weren't really adding any value, and you know, they have to move past that. So that would be the biggest thing I would say is, you know, start thinking of how you improve efficiencies one step at a time throughout the whole process. You know, throughout the whole new business process, look at how you can use the tools that are available to you to speed up some of the places where traditionally you've spent most of your time. You know, have a single source of data source, right? So you're getting data coming in from different places. How are you managing that data, and how are you ensuring that wherever that data resides becomes your source of truth? The other thing is all around professional development. And I know Dan is very passionate about this piece. So I am going to give you a second to talk about that, Dan. But what I do want to say is it's time for us to start looking at, you know, reskilling and upskilling, you know, the case managers and the agents. It's time to start looking at new ways of dealing with new business. Let's think outside the box here. And professional development is a huge part of that. It has to be evolving. It can't be at a certain point in time. Even looking at, you know, underwriting needs to be evolving. There's an evolution of underwriting that's happening right now. And it's, you know, only a matter of time that we start seeing this in North America. So professional development is huge, and looking at digitizing manual steps today is huge as well. So Dan, do you want to just jump in on that?
I do, and I do. And we've reached the point in our presentation of the aha moment, right? Over 50% of the earlier answers in one of the polls was about legacy technology. And let's be honest with ourselves. This is, you know, we are in the financial services industry. Investing in technology costs money, but the reason why people are challenged around legacy technology is because they don't want to train their people on new technology. They get stuck with the legacy technology. Oh, that's the way we've always done it. And so does a great job managing that piece of software until so-and-so decides to retire or leave for a new job. And then the challenge because, oh, we have to change out our software. Yes, you do have to change your software, but you have to train your people to have knowledge of all of the software out there. It's time to enter the 21st century, right? We've always been slow to adopt technology, but it's now time to invest in the front line. And I believe that to be case managers, right? NAILBA wouldn't have rolled out a case manager certification program if we didn't poll dozens of carriers, hundreds of BGAs, getting the feedback around our case managers need to be able to adopt to new technology. Well, first they need to know what technology is out there, not the legacy system, the third generation built that you're still using. And then they'll be able to adopt faster to the complex applications that will require case managers. As Paul alluded to earlier, we're going to talk about case managers getting in touch with the advisors and letting them know what their experience is. We have to elevate professional development and technology. It goes hand in hand. The cool thing is the new technology usually comes with a great support team that will work with your case manager, that will work with your illustrator on how to leverage the software. Obviously, it's in their best interest. So let's get that mold to break off us in our mindset and our thinking. And I alluded to this earlier, Grace, in-force management. Are you kidding me? I mean, if you don't know if you don't know where to find a roadmap on where your next sales are coming from, in-force management, it's by far one of the biggest challenges in our space of leveraging the right in-force technology. There's opportunity identification. There's different modeling we could look at, and it's serving the customer. It's creating the customer experience. So I'll get off my bend on professional development because I'm sure I'll bring it up again. But that's the challenge, right? Everyone marks, oh, it's our legacy software. Yeah, it is your legacy software. Because if you change your legacy software, you're afraid your people won't know how to use the new software. And we have to, get out from that rock we're stuck under. So let's talk about data, right? Let's get back into data. Data drives the decision making. Well, there was a significant increase in paramed volume last year due to the complexity around life applications. 15 million parameds were conducted last year. The examiners should be looked at as warriors because they help the industry move forward, and they're still going to be needed despite the fact of the rush to accelerate underwriting and leveraging technology. Just some other thoughts around data and interest in life insurance applications, which would then work with the in-force management and your case managers being evolved. Why don't we just look at Google search trends? If you don't want to take Dan Labert's word for it, why don't you take Google's word for it? Their word's a lot more valuable than mine, only by stock price. Mine's at 0, theirs is very high. But there was a 42% increase in just search engine wording trends around the interest in life insurance. We have to embrace that. We have to ensure our systems. We have to ensure our advisor experience is ready to accommodate this new demand. MIB's quarterly report. We came out again for the third quarter that life insurance applications are up from where they were this time last year. If you want to get a little bit over out of, or maybe I should say in front of our skis, away from life and go to annuities. Obviously, let's look at the awareness that was put out around annuities and as a recommended option for a lot of people securing their future. There's just so much going on right now. So when you have so much going on, and of course this is in addition to living in a world of pandemic impact, but now is the time to capitalize. Now is the time to invest in your technology, create the advisor experience, make sure your case managers are trained. These are the solutions you're looking for that often go overlooked. Paul, you always have great research. You're clearly connected with the CIOs, who I find to be many fascinating individuals because they clearly have their fingers on the pulse. What are they doing, at least that you're hearing, to address that advisor experience?
Yeah, well, from a CIO perspective, digital seems to be the solution to everything. Life insurers want agents to go digital. Something that, as you were speaking just now, it's something that occurred to me. There's so much increased demand for life insurance, and yet there isn't a parallel increase in investment in things like digital marketing and brand marketing and raising awareness of life insurance products as a whole. The insurers are yes. So we want to increase the amount of e-apps that are coming through. We want better field underwriting. Digital is seen as the way to provide the scale, but push it out further. I would say that there's an opportunity, to not just think about how the application is getting submitted, but to use your case managers, for example, to provide those kind of digital marketing guidance, so that we raise or take advantage of the lead generation and the demand generation that'll get you to that application in the first place. So I realize we're coming up on time. I want to leave a little bit of room for questions. So I think Dan, how would you kind of summarize, where we're at right now? Summarize, what we just discussed.
Okay, I'll stay focused here, I promise, and I'll leave out some of the commentary or the color if this were a sports event. But agency, advisors that work with broker general agencies. Now is the time to look at systems integration and data sharing between stakeholders. Right, that could be both electronic and of course oral with your case managers, keeping your advisors up to speed. Right, that leads right into championing the agent experience. Independent advisors, I could speak on that space. They wake up every day, and when they get to the point of selling life insurance, they're going to pick and choose what broker general agency they work with. And you know who they're going to work with? They're going to work with the broker general agency that makes the process, the experience, the easiest, right? Let's use Disney World as an example, right? Disney World competes with lots of other amusement parks around the world. But you know what's the difference between their concrete and attractions versus another park's, Hershey Park, for example, since I'm from Pennsylvania originally? What their difference is? It's the experience, right? I speak about that from a NAILBA point of view. Membership has to be an experience. It can't be a transaction. The executives at Walt Disney World knows right away, if it's just a transaction, you will lose that client. Well, let me tell you something. If it's just a transaction on how your advisors connect with your broker general agency, they will look for another broker general agency to work with. Create the experience. Case manager development over and over. The data is there. The training is now there. I will plug the NAILBA case manager certification. Over 50 case managers trained in the last few months from 50 plus different companies. It is case managers now have a source to get trained in, and they play a critical role on how fast they can facilitate the response, collecting the data from different carriers. But I'll go into a couple of buzzwords here, right? I love the industry buzzwords. For years, we talked about disruption, right? It was a great trendy word to use for your presentation when you spoke at an IMO event or an advisor event. Well, let me tell you something. The disruption arrived last year. So let's get to a new buzzword that actually hits a little bit home now. Future-proofing your business, right? Metrics. If your system is not telling you what your metrics are, how do you know how much money or what your profitability is or how much money you're spending? Right? Metrics drives it. How do you know that your case manager has how many touches on an application process? Where we know if we could lessen the amount of touches that a case manager has in the application process, we could process more apps. There's a brain. There's a brain innovation right there. So and then I'll say this: we have to invest in a solid CRM. We absolutely have to invest in a modern agency management system. Look at your technology as where you're going, not where you've been. Mark, I don't have much else beyond that. I think I've driven it home that your legacy systems are attached to your professional development. And if you don't invest in your people and you don't invest in your technology, then this webinar is not for you, because these are the solutions you need.
Well said. Thank you very much. And thank you all for that very insightful discussion. The research report that has been referenced throughout this webinar will be released in October. Look out for an email from Equisoft with access to the report in the coming weeks. If you found today's session helpful, check out our other distributor insights at equisoft.com. And usually we'd have a series of questions, but we're running a little bit low on time. So we're just going to ask one question before we end our session today. So what is the best piece of advice, and I'm actually asking all of you, what is the best piece of advice you could share about eliminating bottlenecks and getting the most value automating your agency? So Paul, maybe you'd like to start?
I guess I think it can be summed up in a single word, and that's transparency. Keep that dialogue open, via those omni-channel communications, right? Keep the agent informed, don't let them sit in the dark. If underwriting is going to take 3 days, tell them it's going to take 3 days. They may be fine with that, but it's much worse from an agent, experience if you're going to keep them in the dark and they don't know what's going on. So transparency.
Agreed. Dan?
All right. I won't say the words case manager, professional development here. I won't say that. I won't say the words case manager, professional development. But what I will say is, listen, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be aligned with Equisoft if I didn't believe in the products. And there are other partners that NAILBA has, and KELBA as well. We're going, your national association is going to align with carrier partners, product and service providers. And we're not just going to align with any group out there, right? We want to, we align with the groups that have feedback from our membership saying, hey, that's a great product. And let me tell you what they didn't do. They didn't cancel it after a year and a half my agency invested in it. So I think some of the technology that's offered by Equisoft and some other partners that you see NAILBA aligning with is just, they are credible sources to look into on where your agency should be going, not where your agency has been. And did I mention case manager professional development? I'm done. I'm done.
I'll just add to all of that. I think what Paul and Dan have said is very spot on. But as a vendor partner, what I will say is leverage your vendor, leverage your AMS vendor to help you through data identify how you can eliminate those bottlenecks. We have a lot of information at our disposal, and it's your data, and we're here to help you see how best you can use it to drive efficiencies in your operations. So find a vendor that you can talk to and that will listen to you, and then most importantly, listen to your own clients, listen to your advisors. They will help you. They're very vocal at helping you identify where they see bottlenecks. And so I hope you found this session helpful today. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions today. For those questions that we didn't get a chance to respond to, the Equisoft team will follow up with you via email after the presentation. You're also welcome to reach out to any of our speakers or myself directly at the email addresses shown on your screen. So this concludes our call. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.